welcome to the Weekenders. This is the show where we talk about the biggest football games of the weekend. I'm Max, joined by Lexi and Bobby. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Multiplicity Media. If you've never been to the channel before, welcome. Listen, let's just get right into it. This is, we've, had to open up the Christmas presents or the Hanukkah. We've lit the Hanukkah candles or done whatever we do around this time of year. And now we're heading to the new year and the New Year's Six Bowls. And of course, that means it's the college football playoff time. And we're super excited to um, jump into these games. Obviously, we got the big Michigan fan here, Lexi. So I know you're like eagerly waiting to talk about this, but yeah, let's get right into it. CFP excitement. This is what we've all been waiting for. The final time the CFP will be a four team event. So yeah, this is pretty cool. I can't wait to jump in.
I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a absolutely just massive slate. Two great games. Excited to get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
All right,
been
let's
so
start with
long since we've been back in the Rose Bowl, so I'm so excited for that.
When was Michigan's last Rose Bowl? Like, was that like the 04 one?
Oh gosh, maybe like because it wasn't 06. Yeah, no, I really don't remember.
Might have been 06 though, right? Because 06 was.
Yeah, this is where I'm
Ohio
like,
State made it to the Natty.
What
was that? Yeah.
To answer these
I don't
questions.
know.
Let me see. Michigan's last Rose Bowl looks like it was
2007.
Oh, I got 2014. Oh, that's Michigan State. Yeah, 2007. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. So, well, let's start there. Let's start with the Rose Bowl. Alabama facing off against Michigan. This game has been close game, I think, in everybody's mind, but Vegas has it at -1.5. Over under 44.5 as of this recording, of course. So let's talk about it. I mean, first of all, like, what should be the primary focus for both teams? Because I think if we look at like how both of these teams got here, like, we're talking about two very different situations, and now, like, it's kind of weird because Alabama being here is not really surprising when you think about like Alabama and Nick Saban and who they are and what they've been over the last 10 to 15 to 20 years. But um, it is a little bit surprising because of how Alabama struggled early on. They got some close wins against some really crappy opponents, so it seems like this is a mismatch. But when you look at it on paper, and again, according to Vegas, this is a pick 'em basically. So, let's talk about like what are some things that let's start with Alabama. What should Alabama focus on to beat Michigan?
I'm just gonna say that they'll need to stop the run. I think that our game has always been won in the trenches, and so they need to be able to stop our offensive line and get through it, and be able to get to JJ, be able to stop the run. But I think it's really going to be that offensive line that they need to match up well against.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Making Michigan as one-dimensional as possible is the way to beat them. And I mean, we've seen it in Michigan's biggest game so far. The run game is what almost pretty much sealed Ohio State's fate. They could not stop Michigan on that last drive. It was a methodical, slow grind, and frankly, the Buckeyes just didn't have the toughness. Now, Alabama, this is probably the second team the entire season Michigan has played that has the guys to really, match up physically with, that Michigan has an opponent that can physically go 1-to-1 with them. And Ohio State, for whatever reason, they have the size, but they don't have that grit. Does Alabama? I don't know. I kind of think they do. So I think that's going to be very interesting. Michigan's big guys versus Alabama's big guys. And I mean, you got to get to McCarthy, have him make mistakes. He's been really good this year. Hasn't made a ton of them, but if you can get a couple, uncharacteristic turnovers, and Michigan starts feeling, oh no, it's happening again. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Well, kind of speaking of, you mentioned JJ McCarthy. Like, who do you guys think has the greater edge in this situation? Is it going to be JJ McCarthy and his experience? Being in the situation last year. He made some mistakes against TCU. He also made some big plays as well to help them kind of stay in that game. But obviously, like costly mistakes are as ultimately what kept TCU in that game last year. So, is it do you tend to trust more of that, or on the other side you have Jalen Milrow, who is a great talent. We've talked about it a couple shows ago how Michigan really hasn't faced that type of quarterback. That of Jalen Milrow's type of style in terms of the mobility, and Milrow has been very very careful with the football as of late. So which side of that do you sort of like lean towards in terms of like I trust this guy going into the game?
I mean, if we're going down to like trust, I'm gonna take JJ. This is his third year in the playoffs. He's uh, really messed up last year, like you said, very uncharacteristic interceptions that happened and really transformed the game at that point. But I'm taking him. Milrow is a very good football player. That's not in any type of knock towards him, but I'm gonna take experience in this situation when you match up both quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna trend towards McCarthy as well. He's obviously been on the big stage. Has made mistakes, but I think that's something you can learn from and improve. Um, I like Milrow a lot. He has shown a lot of improvement since that loss to Texas earlier this season, um, and subsequent benching, kind of, or whatever the hell was going on with South Florida. I don't even know if that was a benching or if that was hey, stop complaining about Milrow. These other guys suck. Whatever was going on there. Um, but overall, the experience, the talent, all that's there. But I mean, look, if it gets down to some tight moments and you need someone to make a spectacular type of play, I I will say in that scenario, I might be going with Milrow. I mean, the mill throw, 4th and 20, whatever against Auburn. I mean, he's shown up in big moments so
Yeah.
far this year, and I think that kind of like, I don't know, clutch experience right now. That's I think that might be a little bit of an edge there, but from a total quarterbacking perspective, right now, you got to go with McCarthy.
So to me, I think it comes down to like whose leash is the shortest, and I can't imagine Jim Harbaugh does not allow McCarthy just to play his game at this point. Like you said, Lexi, this will be his third time in the playoff. I believe this is his second time as a starter though, because Cade was a starter
Hmm.
2 years ago. So you have this is his third year in this situation. JJ hopefully learned from last year. I think I tweeted about this during the Ohio State game. Like I feel like JJ McCarthy just like makes those like Zach Wilson like throws that are like in like really tight windows. Like I feel like he's just going to like he's going to push the envelope a little bit, and that's him. But I feel like I would be shocked if Jim did not just allow him to play that way, because that's how you get the great plays out of him too. Like some of those throws, scare you because you think they might be picks, but then they're great completions. So you have to take the good with the bad. And I would be surprised if Jim didn't just allow that. On the other side, Jalen Milrow, I think is a little bit more. Um, this is just an Alabama quarterback thing, but Jalen Milrow a little bit more careful with the football, but he obviously has a lot of talent as well, can make some big plays. So I think if Nick Saban allows Dylan Milroe to be himself, run around the field, uh, and just make try to get explosive plays with Alabama's receivers, then I think that's the best way to maximize that guy. But if Nick sort of tends to just use him to like get completions and kind of dink and dunk, well, that's not really his game. So to me, I think that's what it comes down to because I think Michigan has to protect the ball. Um, and Alabama is going to need some of those big plays from Milroe to be able to exploit Michigan's defense. But again, I think it just come down to which coach lets their quarterback go out and play.
Sure.
So we kind of talked about the primary focus for both teams. I think those are kind of the same things as like talking about the keys to victory. What I more am curious about before we get into prediction is, um, do you guys feel like the Alabama game against Georgia, in terms of like what Alabama actually did, like holds any will be a sort of blueprint to what they can do or what they will do against Michigan?
I mean, I
I'm
definitely
not
think.
talking about the result. I just mean like the execution, like what they did on the field. I don't mean like they're going to be. I'm not talking about that. Like, do they go in with the same game plan?
I think
Or
stylistically, there's definitely like a lot of similarities between what Georgia does and what Michigan does. I think just in terms of their pace, in terms of you know how those offenses operate, how those defenses operate. I mean that's you. They're not a scrappy underdog like TCU was last year. Or like TC, like like sometimes you get those playoff teams that are just weird. Some of Lincoln Riley's OU teams were like that, but Michigan is just they feel very similar to Georgia in a lot of ways. So, and more so than I feel like a lot of teams in the SEC. They're built very that kind of blue collar, hard nosed type of football. I I think Michigan does have a winning formula there. Obviously, you don't want to go one for one with how much time they have spent to prep, but I think there's a lot of successful things they did against Georgia that I think can translate in this game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this before. Saban's always going to have his guys ready. There's never going to be a team that I don't are ever going to like overlook or anything. So when they showed out against Georgia, that's the type of team that I expect to see in the Rose Bowl, like 100%. So, I that's just kind of like a given at this point.
All right, so let's talk about predictions now. This is it. Um, for me, Lexi, I'll let you go first.
So, I'm never going to bet against my guys. They're locked in, they're ready, they're focused. They've learned their lessons from the last 2 years. So, it's not going to be a blowout on either end. This is going to be a tight game. I feel like at least down to like middle of the fourth quarter. But I think that Michigan pulls away in the end and covers for sure. Well, covers, yeah, it's a point and a half, but they win by at least a touchdown.
Look, I think this is going to be like a really great college football playoff game. Some of these have been duds. I don't think this one will be, but to me, Alabama in the college football playoff era obviously has been the Premier League or the premier team. They've won tons of national titles, and people forget they have not lost a first like a non-national championship college football playoff game since the very first one when that Ohio State Ezekiel Elliott team kind of ran roughshod on them. So Alabama not only has been really excellent with a bunch of prep time in the college football playoff, they're just scrappy. This is not the best Alabama team. They're not the juggernauts that we've seen from Nick Saban in the past, but they're scrappy. They have like this weird kind of heart to them, and they're confident as hell. So you have that underdog factor. You have the confidence. I kind of think Alabama pulls this one away. I think Saban's just flat out the best at what he does, and I think Alabama pulls this one out. And Michigan, I will say that the key to them for if they want to win this ball game, they have to strike first. The past 2 college football playoff appearances for them, they have gotten off to atrocious starts. And as we know from Alabama, they get off to great starts in college football playoff, and that's kind of how they end you. They just slit your throat at the start and keep and just there's nothing you can do to bounce back. Trust me, I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. They went up 28-0 on OU in 2018. There was no amount of Kyler Murray magic that can bounce back from that. I kind of think that's what happens here. Alabama gets off to a hot start. Michigan not really ones to come back from behind. When you're dominating all year long, it's kind of hard to scrap back. And I kind of think that's what happens. I think they do enough to make it interesting, but at the end of the day, I think Alabama is just going to be a little bit too much for them. So we're going to go with the Tide.
I think college football fans are very fortunate that this is the Rose Bowl. Seriously, I'm not just saying that because I live in the area, but we haven't had a really meaningful Rose Bowl since 2018, Georgia, Oklahoma. I know that Alabama played Notre Dame in 2021 there, but everyone sort of knew that was going to be a blowout, and that was also like COVID, so I don't think there were fans in the stands.
He's freezing up.
Yeah. So this is going to be a really meaningful game, and for that venue, I couldn't be happier for fans of college football to be able to witness that there. But yeah, no, I think that this game is going to come down to the experience of Michigan, which Alabama players, they have guys that have played in these types of games, but I think the most important position at quarterback, I think, to me, I just trust. I trust Harbaugh and to game plan this correctly, and McCarthy is going to have to really focus on protecting the football. That's going to be the main thing. I believe Michigan's going to be able to run the ball just fine and do what they do. And so, for all those reasons, I think Michigan is going to win this game. And they're just going to do it by playing old school, by playing defense and running the ball, keeping the score low. I think that's kind of indicated by the low over under, but yeah, to me, Michigan just has to do what they've been doing and capitalize and stop making and keep and don't make more mistakes than Alabama. I think that's what Georgia kind of fell into was just too many errors, penalties, turnovers, things like that. Michigan is second in the entire nation in turnover differential plus 17. I think that's the key stat in this game. Force turnovers and don't turn the ball over at all, and you're going to be able to beat this team. And I think talent wise on both sides, Michigan has the team to do it. We said it. I think we said it in the beginning of the year. This is Michigan's best team in the Harbaugh era. So this is the time where you have to do it. And you couldn't be you couldn't ask for a better stage. The Rose Bowl, college football playoff against Alabama. This is your moment. And so yeah, I think this is a game that Michigan is definitely positioned to win. So I'm taking a Big Blue.
Max, I want to say a quick point about how this is kind of the first massive Rose Bowl in a while. Weirdly enough, this is the first college football playoff semifinal at the Rose Bowl since Baker Mayfield and OU played Georgia in 2000, I guess January 1st, 2018. That's how long ago it was because of the weird Dallas Rose Bowl they had because of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the best stage in college football, bar none. Very
Yeah.
excited to see it.
Agreed.
Yeah. 100%. Okay. Um, all right. Let's go to the Sugar Bowl. 8:45 kick in New Orleans. We got Texas, a 4.5 point favorite as of recording, facing off against Washington. Excuse me. The Texas is 3 in the standings. Washington's 2. It's over under 63.5. Is Washington kind of being underrated in this game? Is like you got the Vegas line, you got a lot of people kind of, and when people were having their arguments about who should the top 4 teams be, like people were saying that Georgia should be in over Washington, and Texas was the obvious choice. Like, as Washington still kind of being underrated, even though they've proven so much this year, undefeated, beat Oregon twice. They've kind of shown it on paper, but do you guys feel like they're still kind of being slept on a bit?
I think Washington is a great team, and beating like your rival, like, for them, Oregon, twice in a season, especially with like how good of a team Oregon is, that's really impressive to me. So I think they're kind of getting a little bit kicked to the side here. I do like the matchup. I mean, both of these offenses are like very high powered and can score a lot of points, but I do think Texas defense has like a little bit of an edge of what Washington maybe like didn't really face kind of too much throughout this season. But they're a little bit underrated, I think, going into this. I mean, they're undefeated and they won the Pac-12 and have won all their games and beat Oregon twice. So I don't really know what more they need to do to prove themselves, but beat Texas, I guess.
Yeah, I think they're sleeping on the Huskies a little bit. What, and I think for some good reason. Like, they've looked poor at times, but when they've looked good, they've looked really, really good. Both of those Oregon games, particularly the Pac-12 championship, they've come out firing. But overall, I would say, yeah, maybe we are sleeping on them a little bit. I don't know if that's just kind of an unconscious Pac-12 bias or not, but.
Yeah, I mean, I know we all kind of respect Washington on the show. I think just like from the outside perspective, it kind of just seems like, again, you can look into the Vegas line and just the general consistency. It kind of seems like people still don't really, people still not really giving Washington their respect after accomplishing what they did this season. Pac-12 was bar none the hardest conference. They won it again by beating their rivals a second time in Vegas when Oregon was a 9.5 point favorite. Washington just continues to prove against tough circumstances they're going to come out and throw haymakers and beat you. So I think Washington definitely has been underrated, and I wonder how much they're going to use it as billboard material for this game. But let's talk about kind of who has the edge in this scenario. Washington, obviously the number one team um, in the country, or one of the top teams in the country in terms of their pass offense. They're second in yards per game passing. Texas pass defense sort of lower in the country, but I don't think that's necessarily. You can blame that on the talent, or you could just say like, they were in a lot of blowouts. Teams passed the ball. Yada yada. You can blame that on whatever. But we know what Texas can do very well is run the ball. They're a top 25 team in the country in their run yards per game. But Washington's run defense is down in the hundreds. So, like, you kind of have, like, strength on strength here offensively. Are you guys taking, or who do you guys think has the edge in this situation? Washington's pass offense or Texas's running game?
Texas's running game is interesting because they did lose Jonathan Brooks for the season earlier this year against TCU. He tore his ACL. Probably definitely UT's best running back. So to me, it's like I'm a little, I don't know. I don't want to say wary of it where they are right now. They did finish the season against some pretty abysmal, competition rushing wise or rush defense wise. Iowa State not exactly wonderful there. Tech a little iffy, and then Oklahoma State, despite the fact that they had a good as good of a run as they did, making it to the Big 12 championship. Let's just be honest, they were a bit of a paper tiger there towards the end. Just kind of collapsed after Bedlam. But so I'm trending Washington on this one just because I feel like what we've seen out of Texas, like I just don't. I think that room is just not quite as good as it has been throughout the season.
Yeah, I'm kind of like in the same boat where it's like, yeah, their run game, Texas run game is pretty good, but Washington's pass game, like you said, Max, when they're on, it is like a whole show. So I'm taking the edge with Washington on that.
I think I might take the Texas running game because I don't think that Texas. I Michael Penix Jr. I think, and though the receivers he has and that talent like is obviously great. I think they're going to be I think they're going to be a problem for anybody. But the the Washington's inability to stop the run concerns me a little bit. I'm kind of surprised. Um, Oregon didn't exploit that a little more, but in their game. But I just feel like Texas, if you can run the ball, you can control clock. You can keep Michael Penix Jr. on the sideline. You can do a little bit more when you have a steady run game. Washington sort of has that ability to like obviously go make explosive plays. They'll be able to score in bunches. They'll be able to answer quickly. But I think if it comes down to like a gritty game where time is of the essence and where they're playing ball control and clock control, uh, I think I might have to give the edge to Texas's ability to run the ball. I'm not saying that I think they'll win, but just saying like that could be an issue for Washington. But both units are very good. All right, let's do keys to victory really quick. Bobby, as an Oklahoma fan, I trust you know how to beat Texas, so I'll give you the floor on how Washington can win this game.
Well, I think
And by the way, sorry. You're a fan of the one team that has beaten Texas this year, so you're the expert.
Uh, yeah, that's the thing is we still technically have some bragging rights because we have the golden hat, so that's something. Uh, but no, that's the thing. How to beat Texas? Essentially, you gotta you gotta make Quinn Ewers. I hate saying you gotta have the quarterback make a bunch of mistakes too much because of course. But that was what OU did right, essentially to slow down Ewers, is forced him into a bunch of turnovers. And, even though he put up a lot of gaudy numbers, and still almost won that game, I feel like, getting the jump on him, having him, make a couple mistakes here and there, that's key. Um, I think also the offensive game plan, Kalen DeBoer, you have to be aggressive. You have to go at them. That defense does have holes. You can't exploit them, but you have to go vertical. So, I think if Washington, look, come out with that fire, come out with that tenacity that you came out against against Oregon with in that last game, and I think they can do it. On the flip side, Penix can't have the mistakes he's made in the past. That's not great. And I will say Washington pretty good at turning folks over in big games. Oregon State, one of the big reasons why they came out with a win there was because they put DJU in a blender and just were able to really reverse field a bunch of times. So it's going to be an intense atmosphere. It's going to be a heavily slanted Texas atmosphere, and as NFL fans know, Superdome can get pretty damn loud. So if you can keep that place quiet, get Texas fans a little nervous there, turn them over. I think the Huskies have a chance.
All right. And how does Texas beat Washington, Lexi?
At this point, it's like you have to limit Michael Penix Jr. So, however they can get that pressure on him, contain him, do whatever you need to do, because the Washington offense, I feel like if they aren't tamed, is going to win this game. So, control the pace of the game, control how often Washington offense gets that ball. And that'll be a way for Texas to win it. Not really sure if that happens, but that's going to be their best bet, is to just basically contain that great quarterback that Washington has.
Yeah, exactly. So prediction, we'll jump in. We all got we're all taking Washington to win this game. For me, it comes down to I think again, like this, like from a football standpoint, I do think Washington has the dudes at quarterback, at receiver, to just make it a track meet. And I think that and if it's a track meet, I'm taking the better quarterback, which in this case I believe is Michael Penix Jr. And Washington has beaten, as dynamic as Texas is on offense. I believe Washington beating Oregon twice. Like, to me, Oregon is the most dynamic offense in the country this year. Like, Bo Nix, Bucky Irving, their receivers, like that's if they weren't number one, they were close to number one. So to me, like that blueprint twice, I feel like they can go into a Texas and um and do the same thing, even in a tough road environment, as long as they can stop the run. Because if Texas runs the ball too much in that with the crowd that'll be Texas leaning, I think it'll be an issue. But Washington, they make it a track meet. They get Ewers to make some mistakes, get them off the field, get possessions. I think Washington can win this game, and I think them being disrespected, from the Vegas line to the general public just being so, you know, Texas obsessed or whatever you want to call it. I feel like that's going to be great motivation for them to come out and hit Texas in the mouth and win the game.
I agree fully. It's gonna be a great show. I'll say, like I said, the both offenses are gonna be interesting to watch, but I've got Washington taking this one. I just think the offense is gonna be too much for Texas defense. So
Yeah, I have the Huskies here. I think it's going to be a coin flip. It's going to be really, honestly, close to call or too close to call. But I mean, we've seen Washington and Penix play Texas last year. They looked really good. Um, the blueprint's there. Obviously, it's a better Texas team this year. But I think I'm doing it just because I don't want to see the reality where Texas is playing in a national championship in their own backyard in Houston. I can't have that. So, Michael Penix, you're my only hope.
One fun stat, and this doesn't mean Washington's going to win, but this definitely is an interesting stat for those betting on the game. Um, Washington 10-2 versus the spread. So, if you want to, if you bet against the 10.5, the 4.5, should be feeling good about it because Washington normally does really good against the spread, and it seems like right now a lot of the public is going for Washington straight up. 64% taking the Washington Huskies to win the game straight up. So should be interesting to see what happens in that situation. Okay, Let's get to lock of the week for the college football playoff round. We'll factor it into the total score later. Don't worry about that right now. Um, Lexi, go ahead first with your lock.
Yeah, I'm taking Washington at plus 4.5. I think they probably get him by at least a touchdown.
I'm gonna zig from where I'm sure where I know y'all are zagging, and I'm gonna go with Alabama plus 1.5. I don't know. Just frankly, I'm getting plus odds with Nick Saban in the college football playoff. I'm not going to turn those down.
Yeah. I think that's a really good lock, Bobby. I'm taking the Alabama Michigan over 44 and a half. This kind of reminds me of like last year. Everyone sort of didn't people didn't know what to expect with Alabama and excuse me, with TCU and Michigan. I forgot what that over under was, but Michigan had a great defense last year, and TCU just scored a bunch of points. I don't think this will be like that situation again, but I think these two teams, with the offenses they have, can put up a lot of points, and I think the 44 and a half is sort of like baiting teams to be like, baiting betters to be like, oh yeah, like this would be a defensive battle where the score is low, and it definitely could be. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I feel like it could go the other way where both teams are putting points up. You got the dynamic ability of Jalen Milrow, the Michigan running game. Sometimes things can get off script too. The Rose Bowl, you never know what can happen. Big stage. I don't think it'll be a low scoring game. Give me the over on the 44 and a half for Alabama, Michigan for my lock of the week. All right, cool. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. It should be a fun college football playoff. We'll see you next week for the big natty, and we'll see who makes it there. We'll see what goes on. But yeah, enjoy your new year. We'll see you in 2024.
Happy New
Peace.
See
Year.
ya.